Alright, welcome back to the last video here. This is where we're going to adjust and make our own new bleed and our new stun ability to further modify and add more flavor and value to our new Grabthars hammer. So to cut it simple, we're just going to jump right in because that's where I'm feeling right now. And let's go ahead. We're going to look at the build. This is where we're going to find these effects at. Build base. Scripts, and then we go to our globals because that's where 90% of this stuff will be modifying lives code base wise, data tables, things like that, as you found as we go through all these systems and everything. So we don't need the static data opened anymore. What we do want to grab are the mobile effects, and then I believe under debuffs we will find a bleed file. Yep. And we will find a stun file. Again, if we go back for the reference, let's take a look at the equipment stats. Let's look at this one right here. Sorry, the weapons here. So Grabthar's skin is calling the mobile effect target mobile effects. This is important because you can just have it call a mobile effect and not target mobile effect. Different things, but that's beyond the scope of this video. So let's just know that it's calling this stun right here. So what does that mean? Well, when you proc your Grabthar's hammer stun ability, it fires the code inside of the stun mobile effect here. Okay? And we have things like the on entering the state of the effect. It's a state-based system. And then on exit state, pulsing, AI pulsing. Right here's all the code. Right, we'll kind of go through this here in a second. I just want to show you what's going on. So as you can see, there is a args being passed to the on enter state. In the case of this, if we're looking at the target mobile effects, the stun that's being called is getting past this table right here. Okay, it's getting past a table that has a key value duration and player duration with these time spans attached. So how that works is in the code in the back end, when it's doing the mobile effect things, it will go ahead and you'll have a value called self being passed to parent object. This is the target, and the target, I believe, for some odd reason, looks like it is the person doing the effect. But the point is that where the arguments table, you will have this args. You'll see these values, and then you'll see args duration being tested down here. Again, we're not reading the code line by line. We're just showing that's what's technically happening. So now that we have targeted the player, gotten the ability to stun, that's all worked through the calculations. Now we're going to apply our mobile effect or stun effect. And so now that we have this file open and I've described it that way, we don't want to edit this at all because, again, this is in the core build folder. So what we could do at this point is, since we want to use a majority of all of this code, okay, we just don't want to use this key. We're just going to want to call this the Grabthars hammer key, right? So the first thing that we are going to do is this is located again once in the, if you put your cursor over this, it'll show you, or it'll show you down here where you're clicking your file names, that it's got to be in the mobile effects and the globals in the debuffs folder. So we have to remember that folder structure. It's not the static data. In the globals, we need to create a new one. So new, and then we go to folder. All right, and then we're going to create the mobile effects. I believe it's got an S at the end, but let's double check so I don't mess it up. Yes, it does. And inside the mobile effects, we had the debuffs. Is it debuff or debuffs? Yes. So hard to remember all this stuff here. Yes, the debuffs with an S. So now, mobile effects, new folder here, debuffs. Alright, and we are almost there. And I'm just going to manually create the stun Lua file. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. Control S to save. Call it stun or Grabthars underscore stun dot Lua is what I'm going to call it. Alright. So the last thing we need to do to copy the basics of this stun effect is that we are going to just copy the entire thing. Come over to our Grabthars stun. And as you can see, we have the table here. We just have to, sorry about that, I was locking up. We have Grabthars, got changes, stun. Okay. So now, to make sure that everything's linked together, this is the new stun ability. This is the mobile effect, the target mobile effect, which is this stun right here. So now that I do that right here, I will use Grabthars stun. Now we have one more problem. Right now the server has no idea of this reference or adding or injecting this new weapon ability into the mobile effect library, because we're going to learn about the main file that you will find. What I'm going to do, let's go back to the base, the scripts, and you'll find out, it's important to find out what these mains do. So we have the debuffs directory, and then we have all these files, and you'll see we have a main. Now looking at this, it'll make more sense now. This main file will call all of these debuff files and load them into globals. All this information for this main and this debuffs folder will load these subfolder items and various other things. It's just loading all the effects and all the code. Now the problem is we do not have a file called Grabthars stun inside of the core thing, so it's not going to know to stitch that file in. So now we need to make a modification to the debuffs main in the mod file itself. I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but that's okay. We have to learn how to properly insert these things, and so we're going to go through that and make it really, really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and close this build stuff up. We don't need this. And then we are going to go ahead and go to the debuffs directory, and I'm going to create a new file for our mod. This one's going to be called main.lua. Okay, and then this one we're also going to have to grab the require statement to grab the basic loading of all the mobile effects, and then we'll load our stuff later once Citadel stuff has had their stuff loaded, which is what this is going to do right here. So we're going to target the default globals, no longer static data. This is mobile effects. Okay, and then we are going to go to the debuffs directory, and then simply call the main, and now we have access to putting in calling Grabthars hammer. And now since Grabthars hammer is not in our it's not in the base folder, or it's not the default, we are just saying, alright, Grabthars, right? Let's make sure I get this right. Oh, stun. Alright. And that's the name of this file. We get rid of default altogether. And when you're calling a file like this from your mod, you just omit default. If you want to load the core files, you add default. So now what this is doing technically is it's loading their main file, which is loading all their mobile effects, and then once all their stuff is done, it's going to go ahead and point here and load this mobile effect in. So it's important to learn how these things are loaded, just so that you can navigate and figure things out through the timing and debugging, because it could become a nightmare. So anyways, now let's go ahead and clean up here a little bit. Right now we're not working with the bleed, we're working with the stun, and we no longer are using this stun file anymore because we've created our own Grabthars stun. Okay, and so what kinds of things can you do inside of this to modify it to make it different than the other stun ability? Well, first of all, there's checks and balances codes to make sure that you're able to stun, I think, and they don't have the can't be stunned mobile effect running as well. And then it says is player, whether or not it's a player character that it's being applied to, it looks like. And then here's the duration information, and otherwise it defaults out. It sets a spellcasting interrupt message to the target that's being stunned, which is referred to as the state or the self parent object, right? That's pretty much the parent object is the person that the effect is being applied to. And then it sets the mobile mob, disabled, stun, true here. A little cup of tea there to help out long-winded conversation here. So if the target is legitimate object, it'll advance the conflict relation with the conflict system. That's another rabbit to go down, big old hole. But the whole point here is the NPC, and it says stunned combat. So over the stunned person, it says that. So what I would like to do as a easy modification is, well, I'm just going to go ahead and since we know the parent object is the person that's getting the stun, then the target is the person that applies it. Okay, so if the target, let's see, what's the function? I'll find it real quick. Is player. Let's see how that works here. Yep. So you can call the function that's applied to any object. Is it a player? So if the target is a player, and okay, so yeah, so because we don't want to send messages to non-players, that's why we did that. So let's do our getting a little old in my age trying to do this stuff still. Okay, so first we just tested, hey, is the target a player? Okay, yeah, it's a player. So then we want to put an overhead message above that player. All right, so as you can see, right below here, there should be a NPC speech right above it. So this is what the target's saying. All I'm going to do is I'm going to take this same function because it works on the target, which we found is a player at this point. So we can do target, and we'll just paste this in, and then we can go ahead and put by Grabthars hammer, right? Because we want him to say, by Grabthars hammer. We're going to go ahead and get rid of this alert right here where it says combat. And it's just going to say it right above the player's head when they activate the Grabthar hammer stun. So we can just go ahead and get rid of that. This takes a couple arguments, so it's fine. It'll just take what this is right here, and this right here is the color text. Since we like that purplish color, I'm just going to go with the FF55 FF, and it's more purplishly. Let's do A to tone it down just a little bit. Should be purple in text that appears above his head by by Grabthars hammer, right? Yeah. All right, so lastly, I think just as a general process, what we did here is when the mobile effect is first fired, the on enter state is being called. This code is firing down here, okay? And now the on exit state is called when it's like a get pulse frequency and AI pulse. You see where it says like end mobile effect, whatever for the pulse frequency, duration, time span. So in a nutshell, what it's doing is that this is firing off, and then it's going to wait for the 3 seconds or the half a second, whatever the duration that's being passed and calculated right up here. And then it's going to pulse, wait, and once that pulse is done, it's going to call the on exit state. The on exit state is going to remove like any mobile mods that were attached or buff icons, any other cleanup that you want to do. I know this is a little bit of a run through and it's kind of quick, but it's just showing you that this is how deep you can go. So technically all this code right here can be completely modified and changed to do whatever you want. You can run whatever calculations you want. You know, it can get that complicated, which is a good thing. It lets you really open up how you can make these effects do things. And they have like plenty of examples of like damage over time, which is like the bleed one. We'll do that here next. But this is the basic breakdown of our mobile effect. Now, hopefully, I just want to verify that this file's being seen by the server. So the first thing I'm going to do is at the bottom, I'm just going to do print I'm here to make sure that we got our main reference right. Everything's being called. We didn't mess up loading up all the mobile effects that normally happen in the game if a typo happens. So let's take a look here. Looks like our server is down, so I'm just going to go ahead and restart it again. Alright, let's take a peek here. We've got the standalone launcher. I'm just going to verify that I saved all again. Always save, right? Always save. And let's go ahead and load up our test map. And so once this server loads up, we are going to log in. Should be able to. Test maps pretty quick. Again, we're using the standalone. Alright, we made it in game. It's like, you know, people think developers are playing games all day. No, you're just clicking reset. Alright, so with that done, this was loaded. I'm just going to open this up, and right now I am not seeing a message. Let's reload globals here and debug what's going on here. So reload globals. I should be getting a print message. I'm here. And currently I am not seeing that nor an error firing off. So that means that, let's take a peek here. Are we being seen? Let's try print I'm here. Let's try that. That's a different one. So let's go ahead and go back to the game and we'll just reload and say, why is it not seeing that? Do we see the I'm here? Okay. So let's take a peek here. We got Grabthars, stun, globals, mobile effects, debuffs, mobile effect, debuffs, main. This got fired off. This did not. This is definitely a weird one, because it should be printing up I'm here. And also we're just double checking I'm here. definitely an interesting issue. I'll come back when I fix it. I basically found the issue. I had the Grabthars hammer in the wrong directory. It's supposed to be saved inside of the debuffs. Alright. Let's save this. And then if I go back and we will reload the server, let's do a reload globals. I should see an I'm here and what I'm here 333 printing that I made now. Yeah, hammer time. Yeah, that's what I put in. Alright, so now that we have this code's now firing and functioning live on the standalone server, we are good there. We don't need this here anymore. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to bring over our bleed file. And so what I'm going to do is go back to the build, base, scripts, mobile effects, debuffs, bleed, and we'll just go ahead and save this in our mods folder. It's right here. We'll go to scripts, globals, mobile effects, debuffs, and then we want to call this Grabthars underscore bleed. Alright, and then we'll call this up here Grabthars bleed. And then we need to go back to the equipment stats. Sorry about that, the weapons one again, and the mobile effect now is Grabthars bleed. Alright, so just with those few, I would say simple but tedious edits, now we have our very own Grabthar stun that works just like the stun ability, except for now we added the overhead message saying, hey, by Grabthar's hammer. Let's see, under the Grabthar's bleed, there's still something missing. We don't have a reference to it yet, just like the problem is we had in the main file. So we need to go back to the main, and since it's the same directory, we're just going to go ahead and add the location instead of Grabthar stun. We'll just change that to bleed to match the file name of what we have here. Let's go ahead and save all. And basically, in this bleed function, I haven't opened this up in a while. Let's take a peek here and make a quick modification. I think it looks like, let's double check here, the target. Alright, that's the target pulse frequency. Let's double check what this is actually calling. This is a target mobile effect, and so is this. So that means that the target is the user. Alright. So we've got the, I'm going to nab this NPC speech code here so I don't have to write it again. Right, okay. We had that right here. And then I'm just going to come over to the Grabthar's hammer when we enter the state. I don't really care when this is happening. Just take the target and we'll do by Grabthar's hammer. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load up Copilot here because AI is your friend, right? Alright. And then the first thing we're going to do is what is a let's see, best thing is what is a good grab mock tar chant quote from Galaxy Quest. The Sons of War van, you shall be. So let's just put You shall be avenged. Oh, by the sons of Warvan. Let's just, yeah. Let's copy this. Again, because who has time to actually think about anything, right? So, I'm just going to go ahead and replace that with, I think we had the asterisk, or, I think we'll just leave it as is. Make it look different there. Alright. So, it's not the best mods right now, but again, this does change it up a little bit, and so what we're going to do is we're going to test it in game. The best way to do that is reload the globals, then we'll check the server to see if you messed up. It'll cry if you have any errors. I don't see anything. I'm going to go ahead just to refresh the weapon stats and everything. I'm going to unequip this and re-equip it. Alright. So first thing I need is a macing skill, so I'm going to edit mob, edit character, skills, and for bashing, let's just set it to 100. Alright, so now I'm an expert mace guy. Alright, we're good to go. Let's create a bear, right? Let's do a brown bear. And then lastly, let's type in the INVUL, invul, or is it invul? Yeah, invul command will make you not invulnerable anymore. You can be able to attack stuff. So hopefully when I activate, I'll do Grabthars bleed on my next attack, and it should say, in purple, there it was. By the Sons of Warvan. Okay, so not bad. Let's set stam. I think it's 100. Does that work? Nope. Okay, that's fine. We'll wait a second. And then we'll try this Grabthar stun and see what kind of message comes up. Take out this bear though. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and just create another bear. And let's go ahead and do another black bear maybe. And then let's do the stun effect here. And he stated here. It's hard to read that purple, isn't it? Oh, yeah, by Grabthar's hammer. Yeah, so he's actually, saying that on the stun here. We'll see it again here. If you're worried about dying, you can always type in /heal. It's your GM way of cheating. Alright, so now we have a different variant working Grabthar's hammer that has an overhead message, and since I do not like that color, right, we need to make it a little bit brighter, I believe. So let's go ahead and just grab this value here. And I'm going to go with FF. Let's go with like a really bright AA. So it's barely noticeable that it's purple, I guess. Here. See if that comes up. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and change that to CC, right? We're going to make it really mostly white. We'll do that on the two files here, the Grabthars stun and the other one. We just have to find where we're changing the text color here. Make sure everything's okay. I save that. Let's save everything. Let's go ahead and reload the globals, and that will... I'll just type it in. Reload globals, yeah. What are you guys doing all day? We're hitting reset because that's development. Alright, let's create a bear. Again, we'll do another brown bear because they seem to, I don't know, a little easier. And let's try and see what our text color looks like. There we go. By the Sons of Warvan, except there's a asterisk right there that I want to get rid of. So let's take by Grabthar's hammer. Let's just go ahead and get rid of the asterisk here. And there was one right there that appeared. I'm going to save all. Don't worry, it's still fighting in the background. Voila. Alright, so we just need to, once again, reload the globals. And let's just go ahead and create ourselves another bear. Did a black bear again. It's getting dark, so we'll set time. 10, nice and bright. Alright, can we read it in this? So we want to do the stun next. There we go. It comes up a little bit easier to see by Grabthars hammer. Waiting for that stamina regen to come back to 25, I think, or 30 to use this one. And this one says, by the Sons of Warvan. Interesting. Alright, so basically now we have the ability to just change and modify these abilities to be whatever we want. But this is the start to finish basically process of the files that you need to use, the overrides you need to make, generating unique files like this and dealing with the loading them into globals so that the game can find them, and then attaching these values to our actually Grabthar stun. So now everything that is inside of these is our very own custom code. If Citadel makes changes to their core code base, ours are most likely going to be 99% fine, because most of this stuff is going to remain the same, and along with this and that. And so since it's unique and you made it and you have your own core stuff that lives on top of all this, no matter what they change, you are not going to have to worry too much about it. It should be pretty durable against most changes. So that is the quick and dirty version, an hour or so of listening to me go on about how to make Grabthar's hammer, modify the stun abilities, and you know, I just keep flipping through this stuff here, and yeah, so it'll be a lot easier now that you have the base idea to take this and move on and make your own modifications and test. So once you're in globals, just as an example, I can do all kinds of like simple tests inside of here, since I know that the target is the person that is causing the mobile effect, the attacker, you know, that's using the ability with Grabthar's hammer. Then I can do things like print target, and then target get name, and yeah, we'll just print both those to the console. So now if I want to do code, change my code, I want to do some testing, you can just quickly print to the console to do your testing and see why things are working or not working. So with this as the example, once you make a global script change, all you have to do is go back into the game and then type in reload globals, or make a hotkey for it. Globals have just reloaded, and then we're going to go ahead and create our bear again because we need something to attack. Could be a chicken, it doesn't matter. And the file that we just modified to do that printout would be the bleed effect, and there's our bleed. Let's activate it. And on this hit, you should see on the console game object number 7, Gizmo. And if you do an info on Gizmo, you will see that I am game object number 7. Okie dokie. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for sitting with me on making Grabthar's hammer. I can't wait to see what you make. Any questions related to these videos, let me know, and I'll work on improving them. So I'm going to start working on the next series. I'll see you there.